Hey guys, John here at learningguitarnow.com, and this video I want to talk to you about an amp sim that I started using recently that I think is really great for playing blues guitar. I've tried out numerous amp sims throughout the years, and always felt like they sounded pretty good, but then I'd go back to my amps and be like, well, they sound just so much better. There's something about the feel with a real amp that's really hard to capture with an amp sim. So have been a few that I liked a lot. I also tried the Kemper. It sounds great too, just wasn't for me. There's just so many things out there that I'm always on the lookout for, another amp sim that's maybe going to be this time closer to an amp. So this time I think I found one that I really, really like, and that's why I'm making this video. First off, this is not a sponsored video. No one has paid me to make this video. I have no affiliation with the Neural DSP company. So I know nothing about them. I just decided to try out the plugin last week and thought it sounded really good and decided to go ahead and purchase it. So I bought it with my own cash, and here I'm making this video to show what I think is a great tool to use if you want to get the sound that I get in the lessons, but you don't have like a mountain of of gear to connect. And besides that, if you don't have somewhere to crank an amp extremely loud, I have almost a soundproof little room over here where I can just crank a Marshall 100 watt almost all the way up, and I can barely hear it. Most people aren't going to have that option. So to me, this is the closest thing you could get to that sound. So the plug-in is a Neural DSP Tone King Imperial. I've never played the original amp it's based on, the Tone King, but I've heard good things about it. But a few things just stood out when I tried out the plug-in that said, okay, I want to make a video about this, and especially for the members of the All Access Pass, a lot of times they're trying to get the tones from the lessons I create. So how do you go about doing that without trying to buy all this gear and microphones? And let me tell you, even if you have the gear that I have, it's a challenge to try to get the same tone recorded like I'm doing. And even in the room, it's going to be way too loud. So a lot of times it's an illusion. That's what recording is really all about. It's not exactly like what it sounds like in the room. So this plugin is more like the finished sound that I'm getting. When I record, I use a 57, I use a ribbon mic. I have to blend those together, and I usually use one on a different speaker, make sure they're phase aligned. After that, I can make sure both of them are sounding real good. And then I'm going to use a delay, probably a room reverb and a plate reverb, and tweak that to where it sounds good. Maybe EQs on each one of those reverbs and delays as well. And then I'm going to send that to one guitar bus, and then I'm going to process the whole thing through a hardware bus compressor and a hardware equalizer on the master bus. All those things are coming into play when I record the tones. And I've been doing this for a while, and that's how I like doing it. That's what I'm used to. So this is an easy way to get the finished sound. To me, the plug-in is not like, okay, here's the amp, it sounds like in the room. It's more of a finished, like recorded sound. So you got a lot of tools to work with within the plugin. So you don't have to get an external delay, an external reverb, set up some way to do some kind of a room mic type of a thing. All that's built in, and that's why I like the plugin a lot. So I want to just play a little bit for you to show some sounds that I like getting. So this is, to me, kind of like a super reverb sound. Since I have a 66 super reverb, it's in that ballpark of super reverb, deluxe reverb, and Vibrolux sound. So with the Strat Clean tone, which is very similar to a minor blues podcast I did, I think it was maybe podcast, 83 or something, and getting this type of a tone. So it does a great job of getting that kind of a crystal sound. And what I'm doing, I'll go ahead and talk to you about how I'm getting that type of a tone. So I'm using the rhythm channel right here, which is, like I said, kind of a super reverb type sound to me. So I'm cranking up the volume like I would on a super reverb to get that type of a tone. Maybe a little bit more. Super reverb, I probably cranked to about 5 or 6. And I got this around, looks like 7 to me. Treble up, Fender amps got a lot of treble going on, so I cranked the treble. It's about, looks like 8. Bass and around 3 is what I usually like to do on Fender amps. Then I put a little bit of spring reverb, which sounds really cool. And then you got these effects over here. So just a slight delay. You got a little bit of a slap back, gives you more of a room type feel. So, I mean, you could like really crank that up and have kind of more of close to like what you hear Red House Hendrix getting, maybe a little bit too much delay, but it's pretty flexible, and I think the delay sounds really good. One of the key things to me to getting that crystal type tone is a plate reverb, and I use that on mixdown of all the lessons. It's based on the EMT 140 plate, which is what Hendrix used on his guitar, as well as Stevie Ray Vaughan, Clapton, numerous people using plate reverb 60s and 70s to get that type of a tone. So this is a great reverb. I don't know what it's modeled after, but to me it gives you that high-end kind of sparkle. So here's without it. You get this. Go ahead and turn the delay back down again, so you get more of a. Still got the spring on, but now let's crank up the reverb just a tad. You got. If you can hear that, you can hear a sustain in the background. Gives that little bit of a high end. And what I'm doing to get that, you have this filter here that could take off high end. So you could have, I've taken almost all the high end out and you lose all of it. So if you crank it up, get more high end. And that's the sound that I hear a lot of the Hendrix stuff, SRV, John Mayer, all that kind of stratty things, that crystal kind of a tone. To me, I hear that plate reverb. So that's a cool thing to get in a lot of that finished sound is the delay and the reverb, and just using the delay more like a slapback in this type of a thing. And then you can go back to the amps here. You got controls up here. You got your overdrives, which this is more like a tube screamer type of thing. And the red one's more gain. 2 channels for the amp. And to me, this is like the rhythm channel. And then I'll go to another preset I have loaded. This is like a Tweed blues thing. So it sounds kind of like my Tweed Fender Twin I have. Not exactly the same, but you can get in the ballpark of a Tweed Twin and my Germino 45, which is a JTM 45 clone. So I'll put on this lead channel, and now we have something like this. I'm going to turn the gate off because I don't really like, I like hearing the sound of, it's almost like a real amp. I like the buzz. One last thing is it's very touch sensitive, and the harder you play, the more gain you get, which is really, I have to have that because that's exactly how an amp reacts. When you use your volume knob, it'll clean up. So I'll turn my volume down, which I love to do to a lot of my solos. I play for the lessons, the tone or the volume is around 6 or 7, maybe 8. crank it up, the harder you hit it, the more gain you get. So you can get kind of a tweed sound, like I said, similar to the Tweed Twin, similar to like a JTM 45. Another really cool thing that really makes this plugin stand out from others I've tried is the mic combination. So like I mentioned previously, I like to use a 57 and a ribbon mic all the time, every time I record. If I use 157, it's got the honk in the mid-range, but it doesn't have the body in the low end. So I got to have that ribbon from that AEA. I've been using it for 12 years, like that sound, but it doesn't have the honk in the mid-range that the 57 has. So to me, blend them together, you get the full body, the nice little sparkle on the top end of the ribbon, and then with the 57 you get the honk in the mid-range, which makes both those sounds kind of come together. For this plugin, they give you numerous mics. Haven't tried out a lot of them, but I do like the 57, and they don't have an AEA R84. They have the Royer 121. I've never tried it, but to me it sounds really good on this plugin. And the key thing I have found is using it as like a room mic, that Royer. I like just dialing that room in. So if you take off the room, and you could like take just the mic distance, I think it just phase aligns itself. I'm not really sure about that, but I think if you take the distance back, I'm not sure how the plugin is with that. It sounds good, that's all I'm worried about. I'll go back to distance both. You get a really tight in your face sound, you know. Sounds pretty good, but it's missing a lot to me. So I could either like take the distance back from that one mic just to add a little room to it, and now you get a little better. But now we add this regular room mic here, and now we got this. To me, that sounds more like the sound that the finished sound that I'm going for. And if you're playing like an amp, your ear is never going to be right on the speaker. So you're always hearing the amp like a few feet back, or, you know, however far you're sitting from it. So having that room sound is more like what you're going to hear if you had an actual amp in the room. So I really like that feature. I think it sounds really good. You could mess with these as much as you like, but to me, I think that sounds really cool. Depending on the tone you're going for, you know, you could add more room, less room, whatever. And that's kind of reminiscent of that Clapton kind of 3 o'clock blues. You know, I think also Gary Clark did a couple podcasts about that type of a tone. Not like the same guitar I used, but it gets you that really tweedy sound. Jimmy Vaughn type thing. Turn down the guitar, get cleaner. Turn it up for some maybe lead. That's a great sound. I think it's very in the ballpark of a Tweed slash JTM 45. Okay, so now I've changed over to the Les Paul, and I think it responds well to it. Great sounds you can get with the Les Paul. Sometimes the plugins will sound great maybe with a Strat, but maybe not so good with the Les Paul. Or a lot of times I found it sounds good for, like, you know, a lot of gain, rock sound with Les Paul, but then you go clean with the Les Paul and it sounds awful. So I found that this plugin sounds pretty good going clean and dirty and rolling your volume back. To me, that's the big test. If I go to the neck pickup on the Les Paul and roll the volume down, will it sound like a, will it sound like an amp sim? Most of them usually probably do. So first we're just gonna play bridge pickup. It's kind of a ZZ Top thing. This is kind of like a Tweed. I'm on the lead setting right here. And you get the volume and the mid bite. Not really sure exactly what the mid bite does, but it does add more gain and more mid-range, so it pulls you closer to like a plexi sound in my mind. Cranking the volume makes it more spongy, I think. I'm not really sure if that's what it's doing or not. That's from my limited experience with it so far. That's what I'm hearing. Tone just gives you more bass and treble, but it also changes the character of the sound somehow. I'm not really sure how exactly. It's got a lot of room reverb, or a lot of room mic. I want to turn that down a little bit. I want to go back to my preset that I created. So this is kind of the ballpark of the ZZ Top thing. Add a little bit more gain to that with the mid bite. A little bit more mids, make it a little chunkier. Turn my volume down to about 7 or 8. Maybe turn the volume up some. Add some brightness with the tone. Got this kind of a... That's kind of a great kind of a ZZ Top kind of rhythm sound. Turn the volume down like that. You can kind of get like that early Clapton sound, Beano thing. So it's kind of a Duane Allman kind of a sound. got really kind of almost of a plexi type of a tone. Okay, now the last thing I want to talk to you about with this thing is how to get a good tone with it. The number one thing you have to take note of is how hard you are hitting your interface. I'm using a Motu M4, so to me you want to be hitting the level around halfway up the meter. Not sure in dB what exactly I'm hitting, but on my meter, I don't want to get close to clipping, so maybe negative 10 dB or something like that, negative 8, but you try to get the meter like to where it's not getting in the red. So the higher that you go hitting the interface, the harder it's going to hit this amp. So let's go back to output, input normal, and then I got this. I like cranking my tube amp to about 5 or 6. Kind of dirty. Then take the volume down on the neck pickup, which remember is a test I like to do, is can it clean up? Because if you take this Les Paul and you pair it with a Vibrolux or a Super Reverb and crank it to 6, and then put your volume around 4 or 5, you get a real clean blues sound. Sounds pretty good to me. Keep in mind, this is not supposed to sound exactly like, all your vintage amps in one, but it makes it really handy to use, and to me, it has the feel of a tube amp, and pretty decent price. You don't have to play at deafening levels. It has everything built in that you need. It also is a standalone plug-in, so you don't have to open up Studio One, Reaper, Pro Tools, whatever you want to use. You can just use it in standalone mode. So you can just come to your computer. I got it just plugged in right into the Motu. Fire up the plug-in. And you can just start jamming away, practicing. And if you're a member of the All Access Pass, or if you're learning any type of a lesson on the internet, or you want to jam with backing tracks on YouTube, click up Chrome, whatever browser you're using, Safari, whatever you got going, and you can play along with any backing track just with the standalone plugin. To me, it's really flexible, and I've got a lot of practice in since I started using the plugin. Just come down here, plug right in, don't worry about amps, don't worry about miking everything. It's just all kind of ready to go. So to me, that's another benefit. It's just easy to start going, easy to get practice in, jam along with tracks anywhere on the internet. It's just a lot of fun to use to me. I also wanted to see if I could get some type of a slide guitar sound with these things. A lot of times amp sim will sound really gainy, mid-range gone, just very unamp-like for slide guitar. So I try to see, can I get a Derek Trucks type super reverb sound? So I guess you will decide if you think it's any good or not. So maybe something like this. Let's try out like a Duane Allman type thing. I made a preset for Duane Allman sounds. Maybe add a little bit more gain to this thing. Okay, well, I think I said as much as I can say about this plugin. If you're interested in getting these type of sounds of plugin, you know, I think this thing may help you out. There's a 14-day trial. You can give it a spin. Maybe be something that's really useful for you. Just get up and go and playing more, cranking your amp. Also, you can play at really low volumes. Once again, I have no affiliation with this company. Just thought it sounded really cool. Made a video about it, and hopefully it was helpful for you. If you do join the newsletter, you can get all the free presets that I've created for different tones like these I've been demonstrating. If you're interested in learning more about playing blues and slide guitar, be sure and check out the All Access Pass. There's a couple 100 hours worth of videos in there right now to show you how to play improvisational blues and slide guitar. All right, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.